In 1990, a teenage girl from Oregon disappeared without a trace. 22 years later, a forgotten yearbook unlocks a mystery that could rewrite everything parents thought they knew about their daughter. This is the story of Alicia Sanders, a bright high school graduate with dreams of studying marine life, gone one spring morning, leaving her family stunned and searching. This is not just an old memory. It is the start of a chase, a sudden flash of a clue in plain sight. 22 years is a long time to live without answers. Her father, Frank Sanders, musters the courage to finally sort through her possessions. But in that dusty book, he stumbles on a message that drops him back into the spiral of pain and possibility. Today, we uncover the true cost of buried secrets and how one scrap of paper and long-held anger can change everything. What would you do if your child vanished and a hidden line in a photo tore open old grief? Would you hold your ground or chase down every whisper of hope? What Frank uncovers next sparks more questions than answers. A worn-out camper, an unexpected reunion, the face of a boy from Alicia's past, 22 years of silence, one yearbook, one road trip. This story is about what we hide, who we trust, and how far we will go for the truth. Stay with me, because this is about to get complicated, and what comes next is heartbreaking, shocking, and impossible to forget. Dusting off the past. After more than 2 decades, Alicia's dad reluctantly decides that it is time to sort through her things and move on. Frank steps into Alicia's unchanged bedroom, posters on the walls, her clothes hanging untouched. He collects boxes, donations, storage, and keepsakes. Then he hits something different: books and binders. Buried at the bottom was a high school yearbook, something he had never dared to look at before. Crawling through painful memories, he opens it. But as he opens that old yearbook for the first time, he spots something unexpected. Inside, her senior portrait was bright and hopeful. Next to it was a message scribbled under another classmate's picture, Amy Davidson. Suddenly everything feels alive again. Who is Amy now? Where did life take her? The memory of supper at their house, stories whispered in pillow forts, and laughter echoing in teenage rooms all return in an instant. Frank decides that he needs to find her. Tucked between 2 pages was something he had never noticed, a short, handwritten note. It read, "You never told him, but I know. J." That was it. No date, no signature, just an initial. Frank flipped back through the yearbook, scanning the pages of the class of '99 until he landed on the name Jason Murray. Finding Amy. With a yearbook in hand and directions from his wife, Elaine, Frank drives through winding roads to a small camper park outside town. He meets a neighbor who points to a blue and white camper at the far end. Deep breath. He steps forward and knocks. The door opens. Amy stands there, now in her 40s, streaks of grey in her once blonde hair, eyes wary and reshaped by years of hardships. She does not recognize him at first, but when he says, "I'm Alicia's father," her expression cracks and she welcomes him inside. The camper feels tight but lived in. Photos, plants, woven pillows, an afternoon sun filtering through curtains. Over coffee, he pulls out the yearbook and she softly remembers the day. I did keep her copy of The Secret Garden. With unspoken respect, she hands him a worn, illustrated edition, the gift Alicia had loaned her. At that moment, it feels as though time has folded, and hidden pages still hold surprises. Her words spilled slowly, as if dragged by guilt. Alicia was scared of someone, Amy admitted. A boy from school, she never said who. But the week before she disappeared, she said she knew something that would ruin him. The bookmark. Frank thanks her, but Amy hesitates, then pulls out the book from a cabinet. He watches as she hands it over with reverence. Opening it, he finds a magazine page stuck between the covers, showing a teenage model, Jason Murray. He turns to the yearbook and finds his photo too. Jason was styled, confident, and part of Emma's senior press. not a big part of Alicia's social circle, so why did she mark his face? Amy explains. They both knew him as younger, moody, brilliant maybe, but a troublemaker. Alicia once wondered if he could change. Once drove by his house just to see where he lived. It was not open affection, it was a concern, maybe even a connection. Frank does not know what to make of it, but he knows he has not heard Jason's name in years and never considered what role he might have played that day. And the magazine page? Only Alicia would pick it as a bookmark. She did not just admire him, she studied him. Jason had been just another face in the crowd back then, football player, honor roll student, the kind of boy every parent would have trusted. Now he was a successful businessman in Portland, married, kids, the whole picture-perfect life. But that note said otherwise. Why would Alicia write something like that and never tell anyone? Why would Jason's name be the only clue after 2 decades of darkness? Chasing Jason. Emboldened, Frank calls the retired detective but gets voicemail. He turns the car toward the affluent part of town where Amy says Jason lives. A sprawling house greets him, a blow-in from his trailer park thoughts. Through untinted windows he sees the man standing calm, confident, and authoritative. Frank steps out, nearing the gate. Jason comes forward, fast and defensive. "Who are you?" he spits. "I'm Alicia's father," Frank says. Jason pales and narrows his eyes. "I don't know anything about that," he snarls. Frank shows the yearbook. Jason's face darkens. He denies they ever dated, says he barely remembered her except for homework and loaned money. But then he pauses. Confesses Alicia said she would break it all off that night. Was going to tell her mum. And then she did not show. He waited behind the gym. She never came. Frank stands numb. The possibility of truth stirs, but so does fear. Jason steps back and closes the gate. "I told the police then, they did not believe me." Before Frank can ask more, Jason shuts the gate and walks inside. Frank staggers away, questioning why he even tried, his hands trembling in daylight. But something about Jason's reaction was beyond simple embarrassment. Unspoken confessions. Frank's hands shake as he leans against his truck. His mind races. Jason's confession, brief as it was, could be a breakthrough, that someone had a plan and met her at school. She vanished from a place she was supposed to show up. He calls Amy. "There's more," he says. "What?" she asks quietly. Jason says they were seeing each other. She planned to end it that night. She was supposed to meet him behind the gym. Amy goes silent. She murmurs, "That's new." And he says the police did not believe him. The wheels start turning. Frank realizes he needs more. Photographs, school records, maybe even students who remember that night behind the gym. That evening, Frank sits at the kitchen table, the yearbook open, faces staring back. But none speaks more clearly than Jason's. He leans forward. What did she see in him? He glances at Amy's note inside the yearbook. "Don't forget to return my book." Was it just a message between best friends or a hidden code? Gathering clues. The next morning, Frank visits the old high school. Floors still squeak and lockers still echo. He asks to look through missing persons files, academic records, and old yearbooks. The school archivist, Mrs. Green, sighs but lets him. She hands him a bound folder, Seniors, 1998. He finds Jason's page again. GPA, clubs, no note, no inscriptions, clean. Next, he digs behind the yearbook's cover. He finds a date scribbled in tiny blue ink, May 12th, 1990. His daughter vanished on April 28th. Why would she mark May 12th? He also finds an annotation, nearly invisible. Look behind. He lifts a folded sheet of notebook paper, blank on one side, typed on the other. Her final words. "It's time." Chills race through him. He calls Amy again. "The note. She wrote, 'It's time.'" Her voice cracks. Well, that's what she said the week before she disappeared. Frank nods to himself. "This is bigger than a broken heart," he whispers into the night. That evening, Frank returns to Amy's camper. Rain shrouds the lens of his determination. He holds the typed note. "Amy, what did Alicia mean?" She looks at the note and trembles. She told me once, "It is time to start over." But after she found out about Jason's background, drug use, and fighting in the woods, she was scared. She had pushed chaos away before. But that day, she held my hand and said she needed more time. Frank sees her sorrow. "Do you think Jason might have done something?" Amy closes her eyes. "He's not a killer. But that night, she said she wanted to tell her mum something important. She told me she had to meet someone." Frank's heart pounds. The clock ticks. He realizes they are close to a truth, maybe terrifying in its simplicity. Frank can no longer follow through with clearing the room. Elaine begins sorting, but he drifts toward the funeral home. Maybe a memorial would finally bring closure. Outside, beyond stained glass, Frank freezes. Jason is loading a shovel, a small wooden box, and a bouquet of white hyacinths, Alicia's favorite, into his car. Frank tails Jason onto the coastal road near Whitlow Cliff, still processing the symbolism. A grainy grave on the bluff? A gesture? Or a confession? Hidden in the brush, Frank watches as Jason pulls a small wooden trolley with the box, shovel, flowers and water container. They walk to a secluded overlook. Jason digs a shallow hole. He kneels and places the wooden box into the grave, then lays the white hyacinths on top. Frank freezes. Jason leans in, and over the crashing waves he whispers, "I think you can hold these memories now, Alicia." Frank is jolted by the use of her name, so intimate, yet chilling. He draws back, and Jason scans the brush suspiciously. Frank stays still. Jason leaves. The truth wavers, and Frank orders himself to stay hidden until he is sure. The truth unearthed. When Jason departs, Frank approaches the grave with trembling hands. He digs until he unearths the wooden box and the silver carrier of white hyacinths. Inside is a small stack of folded letters, cracked pictures, and maybe even a keychain with Alicia's name. But there is a letter that catches Frank's eye, his name on the envelope. "Dad." He opens it with trembling fingers. Her handwriting is unmistakable. The letter is dated 2 days before her disappearance. "I've made a mistake, but I want to fix it. Jason is not who I thought he was. I am scared to tell you, but I promise I will explain everything soon. I just need a little more time. Love you." Frank staggers back, eyes stinging. This was not closure. This was a beginning. But before he can examine it fully, Jason appears, gun in hand, eyes stormy. He must have circled back. This time, his face is tight with panic. "You couldn't leave it alone, could you?" Frank freezes. Jason steps closer, gun trembling. Frank holds the shovel but does not move toward Jason. Jason glances at the letter in Frank's hand. "Where did you get that?" he barks. Frank stands his ground. "She was afraid of you." Jason's jaw clenches. For a moment he is silent. "You think you know her. You don't. She lied to you every day. She lied to me." Frank's voice is hoarse. "What happened that night, Jason?" Jason looks out toward the sea. "She was going to tell everything. I begged her not to. She said she would ruin me." He swallows. "I didn't mean to, but she just would not listen." Frank hits the emergency SOS button in his pocket. The police are coming. Panic meets accusation. Love meets anger, and Alicia becomes the wedge splitting them. He delays, stalls, anything to keep Jason from pulling the trigger. Jason shouts at Frank, "I still have my life ahead of me." Frank asks the one thing he dreads. "Did you kill my daughter?" Jason responds with bitterness. "She betrayed me in the end." "You buried her?" Frank asks, hollow. Jason shakes his head, eyes filled with fury. "I could not. I just left. Ran. Nobody believed me anyway. She was gone." Frank stands numb, as probably the final piece of this tragedy echoes through the cliff. Sirens wail in the distance. Jason bolts. Frank lets him go. He's not afraid anymore. Not of Jason. Not of the truth. He cradles the letter, breathless, knees in the dirt beside her name. This was never about finding remains. It was about finally hearing her voice again. They found Jason's car abandoned near the state border days later. He was arrested trying to cross into Nevada under a false name. Frank handed over the box to the police, but he kept the letter. A week later, a memorial was held at Mornington Cemetery. No body, no stone, just white hyacinths and the note that ended it all. I promise I'll explain everything soon. Frank did not need justice anymore. He had her words, her voice, her truth. Some stories do not end with a trial. Some end with a whisper and a grave by the sea. But the silence is finally broken. Alicia Sanders was never forgotten, and now she would never be buried in secrets again. Alicia Sanders did not just vanish. She was failed by a friend, by the system, by time. But in the end, her voice still found a way back home. And now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Frank's place? Do you believe Jason's confession was real, or do you think there is more to the story still buried beneath Whitlow Cliff? Because the past does not always stay buried, and sometimes it is the ones closest to us who carry the darkest secrets. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was justice finally served? Or was it 20 years too late? If this story gripped you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one.